Hi all, welcome back to the 1 minute farming videos, and we're on with another project, a bit different to what I normally do, but due to the fact that we've had such inclement weather recently, i.e. I've not been able to get the last coatings of paint onto the John Deere B due to the wet weather and this strange hot and cold weather which keeps making things sweat, which is not ideal for painting tractors. So what we're looking at here is a lathe, or the bed of a lathe. I bought this lathe about 2 weeks before Christmas with the idea of just putting in a shed out the way, but not being one to like sitting around on my hands, and because I couldn't get on with the tractor, I decided I would get the lathe in and give it a quick clean and brush over. Well, like all these things, I got it in, and it did require somewhat more. So in the end I've stripped it all the way down to its bare basics really. Can't get much basic than that, just the ways and the table. So, sorry about the tractor guys, we will get back to it. Typically, once I started on the lathe, the weather picked up, and we've had 10 days of dryish weather, so I could have got on and sprayed the tractor. But in the meantime, I got this thing into 1,000 pieces, so I'm going to have to get it put back together, otherwise I'll forget how it goes back together. So the lathe is a Holbrook lathe. Now Holbrook were making lathes between 1860s I believe, up until the 1960s, and they made lots of ranges of lathes, a lot of factory lathes and tool room lathes. And this one is from their Model T range, and it's the mid one. There was a Model T15, a 15 and a 17. And this is the 15 model. The 15 stands for how much you can swing off the chuck. So basically you can swing a 15-inch diameter piece of work in the chuck safely across the two ways. Basically across here. You can put in a piece of work that's 30 inches long between the two centres, so the centre of the lathe to the centre of the tailstop is up to 30 inches. Although I do believe you could squeeze upwards of a bit more than that in it, and a pinch. It's a very heavy lathe. It weighs 1.5 tons when it's totally rebuilt. So yeah, so this is what I'm on with. As some of your regular viewers know, I do like my lathe. I have a Boxford, which I try and make lots of bushes and stuff on if I have to, and this one I did just want a slightly bigger lathe, and this came up on a famous internet auction site and so I put a bid in, and it was a willing bid. I bought it from a deceased estate. I met his wife, the guy who died, who had it. He used it for restoring clocks. What sort of clocks I don't know. There must have been pretty big ones for the size of the lathe, but there was a lot of brass and cut-offs of rod underneath when we cleaned it out, and so yeah, so that's what he'd used it for. Now I've got it because I have 1 or 2 projects coming up which required a bigger lathe, and as I say, I wanted a larger lathe anyway. And when I saw this one, I thought, well, if it's been used by an individual, it'll be okay. So Holbrook in the day, I believe, were quite a respected lathe manufacturer. Now obviously this is quite an old lathe. I believe it's 1937 this lathe was built. So it is classed as a tool room lathe, so it possibly came out of the factory. It certainly is an overhead line lathe, so it would have had a belt coming down from a driven shaft above it. It has been converted to an electric motor now, but it would originally have had a flat belt come down to drive it. Possibly in 1937 it would have been driven by steam. In some of these factories they all were using steam to drive their lathes and equipment. It will probably have seen wartime use, I would have thought. A lot of these companies started making stuff for the Second World War when it was occurring. And so yeah, it's probably had quite a history. Now when I went to look at the lathe, because obviously when I saw it on the internet I couldn't have a good look at it. I bought it from down out of Spalding. I checked one or two things. There is a little bit of wear on this way here, and when I got it home and measured it up, it's between 1/2 and 3/4 of a thou, so it's not too bad. There's just a little bit you can get your finger on. And when I checked the spindle on the gearbox, bit of wood across here with a bar, and I put a dial gauge on top of the chuck. I could only get about 1 3/4 thousandths of an inch movement. So I'm quite happy with that. It'll certainly do what I want to do. The guy was using it for repairing clocks, so it must have been fairly accurate for his job. Hell, I'm not going to be making aircraft parts. It'll certainly do for agricultural repairs. And as I say, I rather like the old vintage things. They were well made, and yeah, no, I enjoy playing around with this sort of stuff. I really do. So yeah, so that's what we have at the moment. It's a heavy old lump, as I say. This isn't going to be its final resting place, so I'm going to put it into my new workshop when we get that finally sorted out. If I turn to here, you can see, as I say, I've got parts laid all over. Various casings and covers and stuff there. Up in the workshop, my bench is covered in shafts and gears. Ready to just go back on it. It's had its final coat of paint. I did hand paint this, mind. So it's hand painted. And so it didn't, although I did have a problem one day. It did start sweating one day, so I just had to leave it and let it dry again, and then I repainted it. But it's been terrible trying to get paint on stuff this time of year, for this year. So that's what we're going to do. I'm doing a few quick videos of putting it back together. It's a bit like the John Deere B, to be fair. There's no one has done a full series of videos on the John Deere B. It's on YouTube, which seems to be my favourite sort of social thing. And the lathe, there's nobody done much on Holbrook lathes. There are certainly plenty of lathes being rebuilt, but no one's specifically gone down the Holbrook route. As I say, this is a Model T, so it's only going to be of interest to anybody that has a Model T lathe. There is one chap down in the Midlands, I believe, who is got some videos out there restoring a Model T15, which is its smaller brother. Very interesting videos. He's actually having to metal scrape his ways, and he's having to metal scrape the bearings on the spindle in the gearbox. I suspect his lathe was possibly more worn out than this one, don't know. This one certainly has had a good life. It's someone's looked after it. It's been well maintained, oil-wise, so the bearings aren't damaged at all. There's the odd little bit of shafting that's a little bit grooved, but hell, it is 80-year-old plus, so it's going to have some play on it. But no, I think it'll do perfectly for my job. So yeah, so I'm going to do a few quick videos on putting it back together, and that's what my plan is. So the risk of repeating myself. Yeah, I know it's not John Deere, but we have to have a bit of variety in our lives, I suppose. But as I say, the weather has picked up, unfortunately, so I could go and do some painting, but I must put this lathe back together, otherwise I'll forget how it goes back together. Okay, that's where we are at the moment. Alright then, thank you very much. Bye.